Guys, welcome to the channel. My name is Mr. Biscuit. The channel is Mr. Biscuit Speaks. I had to do this one. This was something that no one requested. As a matter of fact, someone did request this in a roundabout way. During Animal Farm, and sign up for Animal Farm Chapter 5. We're going live with Chapter 5 this Friday. But during Animal Farm Chapter 3, when we were live on that, somebody asked a pertinent question. Why do we so deeply desire these tyrannical leaders? Why can't we actually experience true and authentic freedom? And I thought that there was no better answer to that question than the one that Fyodor Dostoevsky gives in The Grand Inquisitor. And guys, bear with it. If you've never interacted with Dostoevsky before, I think this is a small part. It's only 8 minutes long. I'm going to have it read to us, and we're going to pause and we're going to break this thing down. So journey with us. If you've never interacted with Dostoevsky before, you are about to witness why this guy is so brilliant. Check this out.
Dostoevsky's The Grand Inquisitor. In the gloom of the medieval Spanish Inquisition, the air is thick with fear and piety.
The air is thick with fear and piety. So the reason that fear makes the air thick is because you're jumpy, right? You're scared of everything. It's a cognitively limited state. And so by thick with fear, it's like the fear is a cognitively limited state. And anxiety, anxiety over what? During the Inquisition, guys, everybody was telling on everybody. As a result of their own fear and paranoia, as a result of a subtle kind of insanity that started to spread among the people, as a result of seeing people hung and burned and, being subject to all of the evils that the inquisitors would visit upon them, right? So the air is thick.
Amidst this charged atmosphere, we find ourselves in Seville, where the Grand Inquisitor has sentenced 100 heretics to be burned alive.
And heresy is any act of disagreement with the principles set in place by the church. The Inquisition, I think, starts in the 1400s and lasts until the 1700s, maybe the 1800s. Correct me on that if I'm wrong.
The flames rise. A figure appears silently in the crowd. It is Christ returned to earth. Soft, reverent tone. He moves among the people, healing the sick and restoring sight to the blind.
Healing the sick and restoring sight to the blind is a sign that you're interacting with Jesus. So regardless of whether you take this literally, I don't think that it's necessarily critical to take the life and times of Jesus of consisting of literal miracles. Some Christians will disagree with me there. They'll be like, hey, you have to believe in the literal interpretations of the miracles. I am of the belief that the writers during the biblical times were not they didn't have the weight of the correspondence theory of truth upon them, right? The correspondence theory of truth being the theory that says truth is what corresponds with reality, right? They were more creative, more autistic than that, more artistic than that. And I think they were following a storyteller. Jesus spoke in parables and stories. And so I think that the life of Jesus was told in stories, right? That didn't necessarily match the literal truth, but captured the spirit of Jesus, the way of being. Remember, Jesus said, I am the way. He identified with a process. And so it's just something that's kind of important to recognize there.
Whispers.
I'm going to rewind it a little bit.
Soft, reverent tone. He moves among the people, healing the sick and restoring sight to the blind. Whispers spread through the crowd. It is him. Hope and awe swell as the people recognize the silent figure.
This is also an important piece. Jesus is silent, and yet they all recognize him. Murmurs start to spread through the crowd that this is Jesus. How do they recognize him if they've never seen him with their physical eyes? They've never seen the historical Jesus of Nazareth, right? He's been dead at this point for over 1,400 years. And he hasn't said anything. He hasn't even announced, hey, I'm Jesus Christ. How do they recognize him, right? Dostoevsky is such a deep thinker. Remember what I said before. Jesus said, I am the way, right? I am the way, the truth, and the light. No man comes into the Father except through me. He also said to Pontius Pilate, I have come to the world to testify to the truth. Those who hear the truth hear my voice. And so there is a way of being which they're recognizing as Jesus. And it's such a fascinating thing. It's like he's a silent figure. He comes healing the sick, and he has this transcendent peace, right? That's one of the ways to recognize Jesus, or any genuine sage, is someone who still has this peaceful spirit despite what's going on. Remember, Jesus said, "A peace I give you that surpasses understanding." It's not going to be dependent on context, right? And so they recognize that this is Jesus just because of his spirit, his way of being.
But then, the Grand Inquisitor, an imposing figure with a voice that commands authority, orders his arrest.
Notice the contrast. When the Grand Inquisitor comes, he's immediately speaking. He's immediately demanding attention and demanding reverence. He wants to be foregrounded and not backgrounded, right? Jesus just comes in the background, right? It's just a very, very interesting contrast. And that contrast continues throughout this. Listen.
Deep, authoritative voice.
Right.
"Seize him," he declares, "for this man threatens the order and authority of the church."
This man threatens the order and authority of the church. To be honest, I think the Inquisitor is right. Jesus threatens the order and the authority of the church. Didn't the Pharisees and Sadducees, who eventually had Jesus arrested, say the same thing about Jesus during his lifetime? He threatens the order and authority of what we have going on here. Of course, the church was later to be established. But look, this is the same criticism that people in power have had against Jesus since Jesus was alive.
He declares, "For this man threatens the order and authority of the church." The crowd is stunned, their murmurs silenced, as the Grand Inquisitor takes Christ into custody. In the darkness of a prison cell, the Grand Inquisitor confronts Christ, his voice a blend of contempt and conviction.
A blend of contempt and conviction, right? Dostoevsky doesn't mince words at all, and he chooses his words very carefully. Notice, first of all, Jesus comes into the crowd in full public view, right? Full public display with no words, nothing to be ashamed of, nothing to argue over, just a peace that transcends the current circumstance. And then the Inquisitor breaks in, loud and authoritative, and then takes him to a quiet, dark, isolated place. Notice all the different contrasts here, right?
Confronts Christ, his voice a blend of contempt and conviction.
Now, this is an interesting blend. And of course, the pictures were artistically put here by whoever's channel this is, guys. I hope that you subscribe to this channel, and I'll let you know. I think it's Common Sense on Mars is the channel. But they did a great job putting pictures here, because the face of this man looks like it's mixed with contempt and conviction. But these are two very strange emotions to come in a pair. If you feel a sense of contempt, you're angry at the person you're looking at. But if you feel a sense of conviction, that almost makes it seem like you're ashamed of yourself, right? Now, where does the contempt for Jesus come from? I think anyone who has contempt against the spirit of Jesus is someone who is very attached, someone who either has attachment issues or resistance issues, right? Because Jesus left even his disciples in a state of confusion almost until the very end. And that's the thing with a way of being. That's the thing about virtue ethics, for instance, that get on a lot of people's nerves. It focuses on who should I be instead of what should I do, right? And so I think that's where the contempt comes from, is that the person's ego does not match the pure being standing in front of him. Right? Your ego is always going to hate that. But then the conviction, he has a sense of conviction as well. Where does that conviction come from? Well, I think that the conviction comes from the fact that when you're looking at Jesus, you are looking at the unobfuscated mind, right? The reason it might hurt being in the presence of Jesus is because Jesus is a reflection of yourself prior to the bullshit. And look, guys, whatever your wisdom tradition is, whether you reach back to Siddhartha Gautama, whether you reach back into, Hindu philosophies or Zen, right? I think Jesus would have been recognized maybe as a Zen master. I've had the Nichiren Buddhists tell me that Jesus was Buddha, right? And that you are too. You just have to carve this out of yourself. But Jesus represents the unobfuscated mind, right? Where there is no attachment, not even to his own body. He's willing to give up his body. And there's not only no attachment, but there's no resistance, right? He's not attached to anything. He doesn't resist. He goes with the Spirit. Guys, I think for the first time in the history of this channel, the camera just died. So let's pick up where we left off now that there's a little charge on it.
Contemptuous tone. Why have you come to disrupt the peace we have created?
Another very powerful part. Why have you come? To destroy the peace that we have created, right? We, the Inquisitors, have created a certain type of peace. Remember, Jesus is the Prince of Peace. He said, "A peace I give you, which is not of this world," a peace that transcends understanding, which means that the Jesus type of peace is the type of peace that goes above and beyond this circumstance. It's a strange kind of peace. Usually when you and I think about peacetime, we think about a time where there is no war. But Jesus said that he wants to usher in a time of peace where there's this quiet inner joy, regardless of what's happening in the world. And so the Inquisitor says, why have you disturbed our peace, our circumstance-dependent peace, our scripture and doctrine and piety-dependent peace? The peace that shatters as soon as you are told on by one of your people, or when you don't tithe to the church, right? The Catholic system at this point had a very dependent, circumstantial peace. And so he's saying, why have you come to destroy that?
Tone. Why have you come to disrupt the peace we have created? The people are weak, craving not freedom, but the security of certainty. They do not want to choose, for choice brings fear, uncertainty, and suffering.
And this gets down to the question which inspired this video reaction, which is, why do we crave tyranny, right? It's almost like we are so troubled by this concept of what should I do? We don't want to be the reason that something goes wrong. And it's one of the reasons that Jesus wanted to usher the Jews from a deontology, in my opinion, or a duty-based ethic, to a virtue ethic, one that was born from the inside, right? And to the Inquisitor, he's saying, look, you've given them too much freedom. People want a box of rules. People want a taxonomy of accurate beliefs, such that they know as long as I check off all these 10 things, I'm good to go. And he's saying that's what we've established, right?
Choose, for choice brings fear, uncertainty, and suffering. And you offered them freedom. But what did they do with it? They turned away, unable to bear the weight of it. They came to us, to the church, begging for us to take away the burden of freedom. They wanted miracles, not questions, bread, not responsibility, so we gave them what they truly desired.
Interesting. We gave them what they truly desired. They wanted bread, not responsibility. Remember, in Jesus' prayer, he said, "Give us this day our daily bread." All of his supplications, if you will, whenever he asked God for something, it was something very simple, right? Just give me enough to continue doing your work around the world. You don't even have to give me a consistent place to stay, or the weekly bread or the monthly bread, right? Just lead me not into temptation, forgive me as I mess up, and just give me enough to survive today, right? A lot of faith required. Whereas with this system, there's a lot more order. There's a lot more that feeds and supports human understanding.
Bread, not responsibility, so we gave them what they truly desired. Order, control, and security.
Right.
We have built a world where they are safe from you, from your demands of faith and sacrifice.
Safe from your demands of faith and sacrifice. And it's not just faith as in confidence, right? That's the simile behind the Inquisition. That confide, meaning with faith, where we get the word confidence. That's the kind of faith that he's talking about. But there's more definitions and understanding of faith. Faith as fiducia, meaning trust, right? Faith as in fidelitas, right? Fidelity, which means loyalty, right? All of these are types of faith.
For centuries, we have labored to correct your work.
That's a dark statement. For centuries, we've labored to correct your work. Guys, the spirit, the way of being behind the Inquisitor is the exact same way of being that existed in the Pharisees. This is one of the reasons that Jesus can keep his silence. He's seen this all before. Just because there's a new person, right, doesn't mean that the way of being is new. There's nothing new under the sun, guys, right? Have you ever interacted with someone? And the thing is, we're just those kind of people. We kind of have this magnetism almost for the same kinds of people. And I love that Dostoevsky throws this line in here. For hundreds of years, we've been trying to correct what you've been doing. And he's right, because the spirit of the Inquisitor is the same spirit of the Pharisees in the time of Jesus' first coming.
Safe from you, from your demands of faith and sacrifice. For centuries, we have labored to correct your work.
Right.
You offered them freedom, they sought miracles. They long for bread, not the anguish of choice.
When they continued to ask Jesus for miracles, he said, a wicked and adulterous nation seeks after a sign. I think that they wanted him to do miracles so often because it's like, okay, is this a power that we all have? Is this a power that we can just command whenever we want? Can we just alter the universe in favor of our ego? Right? And I think at the end of the day, there was a deeper lesson to learn, right?
We have miracles. They long for bread, not the anguish of choice. We have given them what they desire, a unified church, ruling over a submissive flock. Christ remains silent, his gaze steady, as the Grand Inquisitor continues, voice now almost pleading, "Do you not see? We have corrected your error."
Do you see the look on this face? And of course, this isn't the official art of the Grand Inquisitor or anything like that. But I salute, Common Sense on Mars. Definitely subscribe to their channel for putting this back there. Because you can kind of see on the face of the Grand Inquisitor, and I think this is what Dostoevsky meant to capture, that there's a subtle conviction underneath the hatred. Right? And I think that existed with the Pharisees too. When there's a conviction under your hatred, it makes the hatred burn even hotter. Because when you're looking at Jesus, you're looking at yourself minus all of the lies you've told yourself. Right? And if Jesus is a name that you have any kind of background, whatever with, recognize that Jesus represents all of the sages. Right? Whenever the sage presents himself to you, if there is something annoying about that, it's probably because you remember, right? You remember when you were that free-spirited, when you were that present, when you hadn't sacrificed so much presence for the future, right? And I think this is the conviction behind the Inquisitor as he continues.
Almost pleading, "Do you not see? We have corrected your error. We have taken on the burden of human freedom so they can live in peace. And now, you threaten to undo it all with your silent return." The tension in the cell is palpable. The Grand Inquisitor's voice lowers, a mix of sorrow and resolve. "Tomorrow, you will be burned as the worst of heretics. The people will rejoice, grateful for the clarity we provide."
Tomorrow you will be burned. Look at that threat. Remember the threat of burning him and what that actually reveals about the Inquisitor's understanding of who Christ actually is, or his misunderstanding.
For in their hearts they know freedom is a burden they cannot bear. The Grand Inquisitor pauses, waiting for a response that never comes. He leans closer, his voice now a whisper, almost intimate. We are not enemies, you and I. We both seek to save them, but through different paths.
What's fascinating about this is the Inquisitor is actually interacting with the silence of Christ, right? Christ's silence is actually performative, right? It's doing something. And it's actually ministering to the Inquisitor in a very, very convicting way. Because silence is between every word, right? Even the scripture says, be still and know that I am God. God is found in the stillness, right? Everything that you're seeing right now is a reflection of your own limitations. All the colors that you see, human beings can only see a certain, certain small slice of the light spectrum, or they say, right? The universe is actually silent. When air molecules move out of my mouth and they interact with your eardrums, and your eardrums vibrate, and the cochlea translates that vibration to electrical signals in your brain. Sound is produced by your mind. It's all in your mind. The universe itself is silent, right? And Jesus is speaking through that. So everything just becomes noise. Everything that the Inquisitor is saying has become noise. But it's not only that. A wise man is not going to, and let me take this into the cognitive sciences. Relevance theory, established in 1986. The question of relevance theorists is, how do we say so little and yet understand so much? Imagine trying to describe an emotion. Are there truly words for what you feel? Not really. Feelings are far too complex for words, right? So what's interesting and subtle about the interaction between Christ and the Inquisitor is that Christ understands what the Inquisitor is feeling inside, regardless of all of the platitudes and all of the word salad that he's throwing up to justify his horrendous evil. Jesus is beelining to something deeper in him, and that's why the silence is so threatening.
We both seek to save them, but through different paths. You with your unbearable freedom, and we with our chains that bind.
It almost seems to me like a bargain. He's moved from the Pharisee to Satan. When Jesus is tempted by Satan on the mountain, Satan tries to bargain with Jesus. He's like, listen, just abandon this mission of yours, and I'm going to give you all of this stuff. Just bow before me, and I'll give you the things that you're fighting for, so you don't have to die, right? The Inquisitor has now moved to that spirit, out of the spirit of the Pharisees into the spirit of Satan.
Unbearable freedom, and we with our chains that bind. Christ's silence remains a powerful counterpoint to the Inquisitor's fervor.
Right.
The Inquisitor, feeling the weight of that silence, straightens, his resolve hardening. So be it. You leave me no choice. Tomorrow you will perish, and they will never know.
Check this out. He says, you leave me no choice. Tomorrow you will perish, and they will never know, right? By saying you leave me no choice, it's almost like he's saying, I tried my best to help you, right? Now I have to do this terrible thing to you, right? I have to visit upon you this, the fire, the flames. But that reveals, and this is something that I kind of wanted you to consider, this reveals the ignorance of the Inquisitor about what Christ truly is. The Inquisitor has ignored Christ's initial message. Christ is not a human being. Christ is a way of being. He's a spirit of action, a spirit of behavior, which is the reason that when, Saul, who was persecuting Christians in the same way that the Inquisitions were, to a smaller degree, obviously, Jesus met Saul on the road to Damascus and said, Saul, why persecutest thou me? Jesus said, Saul, in killing the Christians, in persecuting them, you are persecuting me, because I am a way of being. Wherever love and compassion is shown, I am there. That is what I am. The body you can kill, the body you can do whatever with, but God is spirit. God is a way of being, and so This part, this threat, this continual threatening that the Inquisitor is doing is just showing his ignorance to the true identity of Jesus.
We will continue our work, unchallenged, unopposed. As dawn breaks, the city awakens to the news. Yet, for a moment, the Inquisitor hesitates, gazing upon the silent prisoner one last time. The Grand Inquisitor's voice softens, a final reluctant question hanging in the air. Why do you remain silent? What is it you see that I cannot? But Christ's silence speaks volumes, a powerful testament to the strength of faith and the resilience of the human spirit.
What is it that you see that I cannot? There is nothing Jesus could have said. Remember, it's the left brain that wants to categorize, that wants to put everything in boxes. And that's the playing field that the Inquisitor wants to play on. But Jesus is playing on is like, you know what the right thing is. What's understood doesn't need to be said. This is why the silence troubles the Inquisitor so much, and why you should use silence to your benefit and to the benefit of people who really are struggling, people who are making excuses. Guys, sometimes it's important to just look at someone with it's like, you know what the right thing to do is. Why do I need to say anything? As a matter of fact, me saying something it doesn't justify what you're doing, me telling you not to do it. But if I'm arguing with you, I'm pretending like there's a debate to be had, right? So Jesus' silence here just makes the Inquisitor, after he says anything, now you just have to rest with the feeling and the absolute knowledge that what you're doing is evil, right? Very, very powerful thing.
The Inquisitor, unable to comprehend this silent defiance, turns away, ordering the guards to prepare for the execution. But then, in the dim light of the cell, Christ moves. With a grace that transcends the physical, he steps towards the Inquisitor, placing a gentle kiss upon his aged cheek.
Of course, this is the most powerful part of this entire narrative. Jesus walks toward him with almost like a supernatural kind of gait. What does this mean? Look, it says, with a grace that transcends the physical. What does that mean, guys? That Jesus walked toward the Inquisitor. Of course, Jesus kisses him on the cheek. That's the important part. But what does it mean that he has a grace that transcends the physical as he approaches him? Guys, most of us who would lie to save our skin, most of us who would be completely terrified in a situation like this because we haven't made that kind of commitment to integrity quite yet. Those of us in that situation, we would likely be very cautious and careful with how we approach the Inquisitor, right? Maybe with our hands in the air, making sure that we're not, going to, threaten him, and maybe not walking with so much confidence, But Jesus approaches him as if this is a hurt and scared man, right? Not someone who, Jesus doesn't approach the version of the Inquisitor that his ego is presenting, right? And that is a lot of times how we, would approach that authority figure, that strong man. It's like, I'm sorry, I just want to come over and, I just want to give you some, Jesus didn't approach like that. He beelined to what the need was, right? He saw beyond all of the nonsense and maybe thought to himself, oh, this is fear. You're terrified, right? And I'm going to treat you. I'm going to come and I'm going to let you know that everything is okay. Very, very powerful part.
Turns away, ordering the guards to prepare for the execution. But then, in the dim light of the cell, Christ moves. With a grace that transcends the physical, he steps towards the Inquisitor, placing a gentle kiss upon his aged cheek. Shock and confusion flood the Inquisitor's face. For a moment, he is stripped of his authority, left only with the raw vulnerability of a man touched by grace.
He is stripped of his authority temporarily, right? And that's where the option comes in. That's where choice comes in, the thing that the Inquisitor has been trying to avoid this entire time. His authority is stripped because his ego is completely confused, right? The ego wants a subject-object distinction, right? The ego sees itself as a subject in the midst of malleable objects. These objects are manipulatable. I can move this, and I can put this right here, and I can move that, and I can move this, and I can drop it if I want. The ego sees itself as a subject with power over objects in its sphere of influence. That's what the ego does. But what Jesus does is he completely dissolves the dissociation between the two of them. He's like, look, this whole game that you're playing, you don't have to keep playing it. You don't have to. Man.
Left only with the raw vulnerability of a man touched by grace. He staggers back, his voice faltering, whispering, "Go, leave and never return." And in an instant, the cell door is thrown open, and Christ disappears into the shadows of Seville, leaving the Grand Inquisitor alone with his thoughts. As the tale concludes, the focus shifts back to Ivan and Alyosha, the original storytellers.
So this goes back into the greater narrative of the brothers Karamazov. But that was the Dostoevsky's Grand Inquisitor. Please let me know how you felt about that. I think we should do an entire book club on the brothers Karamazov. Let me know where you agree, where you disagree, things that I missed. I missed probably a lot. I mean, there are Dostoevsky experts, and I am not among them. But the Grand Inquisitor has definitely touched me, and I hope that it touched you in some way. Let me know what you think, how you feel. Love you guys.